We want to start today's training session, again, thanking everybody for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. And we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. Today, as we gather surrounded by the majestic peaks of the Cascade Range that shield us, near the serene and life-sustaining waters of the Deschutes, and the animal spirits guiding us to self-sustainability, let us acknowledge the air we breathe, the water we drink, the natural land we are sheltering in place on is more than dirt beneath our feet. Let us expand our knowledge of the atrocities against the First Nations people and move to restoration of Indigenous sovereignty and reparations to those affected by broken treaties and promises. Let us work towards repairing relationships and give belonging back to its rightful and original owners and stewards. Let us also acknowledge the millions of displaced Indigenous people due to forced migration from their homes into foreign lands. Let us honor this land. Let us acknowledge. I can't see the bottom. Thanks, Emma. Let us honor this land. Let us acknowledge more than just its occupation. And we want to acknowledge that today we're standing on Paiute, Klamath, Wasco, and Warm Springs land if you are in the Deschutes region. We also want to take a moment to do something a little different for our meeting today, our training, and we want to offer a people's acknowledgement as well. We also must acknowledge the institutional, systemic, and structural barriers that perpetuate inequity that have silenced the voices of communities over time. We at Mecca Bend Rural Organizing Project and the Central Oregon Peacekeepers will continue to work towards dismantling systems that disproportionately affect the historically marginalized Black, Indigenous, Latinx, and all people of color. We invite you to reflect on the disparities COVID-19 uncovered in healthcare, housing, joblessness, financial insecurity, food scarcity, accessible information in languages other than English, and access to federal funding relief to those with varied immigration statuses. And we invite you to take action as we are. As we're kicking off the training here, we just want to remind folks of a couple of points for being on this virtual call that we're on. We ask you to please keep your sound muted when you're not speaking. Please take care of your needs and your body during the session. Please feel free to eat, drink, nourish yourself, take whatever breaks you need. Share the knowledge you've gained and leave the personal stories behind. This is a very important point. We want to ensure that everybody's privacy is kept, so please leave the personal stories behind that you hear today. And the last point, expect non-closure. And what that means is we may not have answers to everything today, but we are moving towards a more just way of acting. And so honor what you decide to let go of today. And so with that, we're going to get started and we're going to hand it over to Emma.
Thank you so much, Janet. So today we are here to talk about rapid response teams to build networks of support and defense against immigration and customs enforcement. And we're using these slides from Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, which is a partner organization in Washington. So I just wanted to recognize that they're the ones that put many of these slides together, and we really appreciate the work that they've done. So the goals or the values that what really brings us into this work and what we want to keep our focus on is that We want communities to be organized and prepared for self-defense. We want to be able to document ICE activity, immigration and customs enforcement, to assist in legal defense of people detained by ICE. We want to provide legal, emotional, and resource support to impacted family members. We want to organize community pressure to stop deportations and keep families together. So it's not just in the lead up to a detention, but it's all the things that we can do in the lead up to a detention and once somebody is detained before they're deported, and keep families together at all costs, really. And then lastly, we want to uplift the leadership of directly impacted people and build solidarity among communities. So we have a lot of people on here. I know that there's going to be questions that come up or things that people might want to add. I'm going to be like asking people to participate mostly in the chat box. If you're on the phone, then definitely, if you don't have access to the chat box, we can take you off mute and jump in with questions. But if you do have the chat box, it'd be great to drop your questions in there. We're going to do breakout rooms at the end to kind of put some practical, think about these things in a practical manner here for Central Oregon. So we're going to have time to kind of dig into stuff there. And also, if you have a pressing question, folks are going to be monitoring the chat box and can answer them, or we can stop and answer. But
Emma, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but it seems like we're having a little technical difficulty with the Spanish interpretation. We're unable to hear, Maria Antonia is unable to hear you, and I'm unable to hear her in the Spanish room. So I don't know if there's some settings that we need to adjust.
Yeah, let me stop my screen share here so I can see a little better.
Thanks everyone for your patience. We appreciate it. We want to ensure that the information is also available in Spanish to those who prefer. So give us a few minutes to figure out the details.
Should we try now? I tried to restart you as the interpreter. Can you hear me? Is it working? Thumbs up. Okie dokie. Thank you. Please do jump in if you're having trouble accessing the information in any way. We want to make this a training that people can actually participate in. Okay. So this is kind of the grounding of why we're here, what we're trying to be doing, and we're going to get into more nitty-gritty of how to do many of these things, particularly documenting ICE activity today. There we go. So we all live in Central Oregon. There might be a few folks from outside Central Oregon. Obviously, ICE made a very public presence of themselves 2 months ago in August. But ICE is also all over the country. Do folks want to drop in the chat box, other than August 12th when they were here, examples of ICE activity that you've heard about or situations in Oregon or outside that might be motivating you to be participating today? Separation of families. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we've seen in another community that Rural Organizing Project works in, there's a mother that was actually deported without her breastfeeding baby. Like, this shit is really intense. There's anyone else have things that they might want to share? I'll just give one more example that, yeah, thanks. In Clatsop County, Oregon, there was a legal observer who was trying to ask ICE for a warrant. They were inside the Clatsop County courthouse, and somebody was without legal status had a hearing in the court. ICE came, tried to detain him, and the legal observer was merely asking if they had a warrant, which we're going to talk about later. And the ICE agents actually pepper sprayed her for asking for a warrant, which is completely within her rights. So we've seen pepper spray been used here. A lot of folks were there on August 12th and motivated by reading the book Abolish ICE. Sweet, thanks, William. Yeah. But we don't know how much more violent they might get. It seems like they're definitely ramping up, particularly with the Trump administration, but ICE has been around for, I think, 17 years now, and they've just been getting more money and more confidence in breaking our constitutional rights all the way along. So what does sanctuary mean? We want to really work from specific places that are currently somewhat safer to expand sanctuary all over the world as we go like left to right here. So in this moment, ICE does somewhat respect physical places of worship. They have not gone inside of churches or synagogues or mosques to detain people. So there is some sanctuary that we can feel and feel safe in those spaces. And so they're finding different ways to detain people and to separate them from their families. We see a lot of detentions happening in the streets, and we're going to talk about how to help folks around you and protect your own rights and respond rapidly when ICE is around. Yeah, Corey, hundreds of poultry workers in Mississippi were detained, definitely. And then things that you can do, we're not going to go too much into this, but if you work on a college campus, or if you want to push the city to be a safer place, there's the things that we can organize around to make Bend or make Deschutes County or Crook County or Central Oregon as a whole a safer place, and for people that might be detained by ICE. And obviously the thing we're working towards in the end is not that ICE never comes here, it's that we abolish ICE and we end the systems of detention and deportation that are criminalizing and separating community members from their families and from our community. And it's all wrapped up in these big systems, which can be hard to say, okay, this is how we're going to end racism, or this is how we're going to end discrimination entirely. But that is part of it. And there's lots of work that we can be doing if showing up at a moment's notice when we hear that ICE is in town isn't something that you currently can participate in actively. There's lots of other ways that we can be working on these same issues and these same with these same goals in mind of creating a real path to citizenship, creating full access to all the different parts of our communities. We can talk more about that too, but that's not the intent, the specific intent of this training. We're going to be focusing specifically on rapid response to ICE. And a lot of these skills are transferable too to a situation where potentially vigilantes or militia folks are showing up and intimidating or threatening people's safety. So a lot of these skills are transferable, but we're going to focus on ICE because there's plenty to talk about when it comes to ICE. And immigration and enforcement more generally. So these little bubbles are the detention and deportation machine. We have Department of Homeland Security at the top, and everything else is under that umbrella. So immigration and customs enforcement, this is specifically ICE. We also saw in Bend Customs and Border Protection on the 12th. They came in, they're supposed to be within 100 miles of the border zone, which includes Oregon's coastline, but we're certainly not within those 100 miles. And Customs and Border Protection has been increasingly encroaching on the enforcement in the interior of our country as well. Transportation Security Administration, TSA, that's part of this system. We're not going to be focusing as much on them. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services are the folks that you would work with to get a visa or to, mostly get a visa or to get citizenship, as it says in the name. And then U.S. Secret Service is also under this umbrella. what we'll see in terms of immigration enforcement is mostly going to be ICE and Customs and Border Protection. ICE most frequently. So as I said, CBP, or Customs and Border Protection, is supposed to operate within 100 miles of the US border. They have more legal ability to surveil and stop community members in that 100-mile zone than they do outside of it. So in Washington, they've set up checkpoints in Spokane. At this point, we haven't seen checkpoints on the US, or excuse me, on Oregon's coast, but it is possible, and we should be looking out for that as they continue to, their budget continues to get bloated. They have more quote unquote toys to play with, and they will try and wreak as much havoc as they can with those. Immigration and Customs Enforcement actually has two branches. Does anybody know the difference between HSI and ERO? This is not a quiz. You're still allowed to participate if you've never heard the difference. Many people have not. One is, you could also read it off the slide and put it in the chat box and look smart. One is Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, and the other one is Enforcement and Removal Operations, ERO. Does anyone want to jump in and tell me what the difference is? Take yourself off mute. You could put it in the chat box. Can't see your faces, so you can't. Those are the two options. Was ERO here in Bend last month? Yeah, this was definitely ERO that we saw. One investigates, one enforces. Yeah, that's great. So HSI is the part of ICE that does surveillance ahead of an operation, and they're also the one that will participate in I-9 audits of businesses, where they'll send a notice to the business that they want to see everybody's citizenship status that that business employs. So they do more of the like back end information gathering. So we've seen vehicles that have been confirmed by ICE in various parts of the state that just kind of drove around, slowed down, and looked like they were looking around, but they didn't stop and detain anybody. And that was most likely HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, whereas ERO, Enforcement and Removal Operations, are the people that actually get out of their cars and stop people.
And Emma, if I can just jump in here for a second, if folks are unaware, the HSI agents that work in collaboration with a lot of, or excuse me, that investigate with a lot of businesses, it has happened locally where a lot of business owners have been asked to turn in their paperwork showing the documentation of folks that are employed, that they employ. So please understand that this is happening here in our cities, and it's important to be aware that business owners also have rights to protect those that they employ.
Absolutely. Oftentimes, I mean, ICE uses the same intimidation tactics with everybody because they think that they're top dog and can do whatever they want. There's almost no accountability. So they will tell a business, send us everything you have. And businesses can be intimidated if they don't know their rights as well into just sending over all the information they have on their employees when they actually don't have to do that. There's very limited pieces of information that like a court could order them to release. So if you hear of that, or if you know a business owner that wants that know your rights information, we can definitely get them connected. Yeah, we're going to talk about I-9s in a little bit. Before we finish this slide, so CBP, Border Patrol are the green ones. They're the folks, if you're in Bend on the 12th, they're the folks that came in like full body armor and green. There were some camo ones, there were some flat green ones. And then ICE sometimes wears these vests that say police, ICE. Sometimes they wear police on their back, and sometimes they're in complete plain clothes. Many of, correct me if I'm wrong, all of the ICE officers that we saw on the 12th were in plain clothes. They were like walking among the crowd, and most people didn't actually recognize who they were. Okay, so we have rights in these situations. They will try and violate them, but if we know our rights, we can do a better job of keeping ourselves and our friends and neighbors safe. We're gonna watch this little video so you can stop listening to my voice for a bit, and we'll come back.
It was a normal afternoon. Judy and her friend Liz went out for lunch. The two met in elementary school and have been friends ever since. Liz is an American citizen, and while Judy was brought to the U.S. by her parents when she was only 4 years old, she is undocumented. Liz noticed two men that seemed to be following them, but she thought nothing of it. That's when the men called out Judy's name as if they were old friends. When she turned, the men approached fast. Judy had just been identified by ICE. ICE stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Stories like this happen every day and are happening now more than ever. ICE approaches people in the street, at work, in their car, or even in court. They often will not be in uniform. It's scary, but remember, we have rights. If you are stopped by authorities and don't know who they are, ask them to identify themselves. Then ask, am I free to go? If they say yes, walk away and do not answer any questions. In Judy's case, the agents told her she was not free to go. If this happens, do not resist or run away, and do not say anything, except I want to use my right to remain silent. I want to speak to a lawyer. Remember, you can ask to speak to a lawyer even if you don't have one. If the agents search your bag or your person, say, I do not agree to this search. They are looking for documents proving your immigration status. Witnesses have the right to film the interaction as long as they do not interrupt the arrest and they are transparent that they are filming. Judy was lucky. Even if you do everything right in a similar scenario, ICE may still arrest you. Another video in this series will help you understand your rights if you are arrested. After the encounter, Judy and Liz took notes about what happened, writing down as many details as they could remember. Be sure that you and your loved ones are prepared for encounters with ICE and that you have a plan for what to do if one of you is arrested, including information about who you should call. If ICE stops you in your community, remember, you have rights. Remain silent. Ask to speak to a lawyer. Say you do not agree to their search. If a loved one is arrested, you should be able to locate them at locator.ice.gov.
So there's more of these little kind of cartoon videos with different parts of the process too, if that's a way that you like to learn. But that's the one that I think does a good job of kind of showing an overview of what an arrest might look like on a street corner. Of course, on the street is not the only place that ICE arrests people. They will go to people's homes. They will do quote unquote sweeps at hotspots. So places where day laborers are waiting to get a job, or sometimes they'll just wait outside of apartment complexes where a lot of people are living that may or may not be undocumented, but they're racially profiling them that way. There's raids at specific locations, like they might do a workplace audit, review work documents, and then go to that. In Washington State, they've had a lot of those sorts of targeted raids at 7-Eleven specifically. Workplace audits, which are those I-9 audits. They'll set up checkpoints although we haven't seen that in Oregon yet. ICE has, and when Trump was first inaugurated, the statistic that I never actually got confirmed was that ICE was going to quintuple. They're going to multiply their Oregon employees by 5. So that could continue, particularly if this administration stays in power, and we could see checkpoints at some point in Oregon. If anyone's been down to Arizona or Southern California, you've probably been stopped in a checkpoint. And other law enforcement activities, they often, in Oregon, were going to courthouses until we passed a law that they weren't allowed to go to courthouses. So now they're waiting like a block away from the courthouse, or they'll show up at jail when somebody is being released from jail and pick them up right then, either because they're collaborating with local law enforcement, which is actually illegal in Oregon, but many sheriffs and local law enforcement continue to collaborate, or because they can see public jail records and they're seeing, oh, that name looks like somebody that might not have been born in this country, and they'll go and pick them up. And they have detained and deported US citizens. So many, while we certainly, there's lots of people in this country with the privilege to not have to worry about ICE activity or being detained and separated by their family, being a US citizen is certainly not enough to protect you right now. Having white skin or being white passing definitely gives you privilege in that situation. And as we saw in Bend, folks are still getting pepper sprayed, still getting punched or pulled out of the way. So this is something that really does affect our entire communities. Folks want to jump in with other ways that you've seen ICE show up in the community? I heard workplace audits. Obviously, they're here with 2 big buses on August 12th. Oh, I actually can't see the chat box. I gotta open that up again.
Yeah, there's been some really great comments in the chat box. Kina wrote that when touring public elementary schools in Oakland, there were flyers in a couple of schools informing families of what their rights are. This magnified their concern, knowing that many children in the US go to school and don't know if they're going to see their parents again when they return home. Some other questions also surrounding business owners' rights and if they need to have a court order or a signed judicial warrant, etc. And so there is some separate information for business owners' rights, and that is quite complex. So it's not really just a yes or no answer, but if anyone is interested in learning more about that, we can certainly work to provide more information.
Yes, Kina, this will be emailed out, and we're gonna send you out the recording as well, so you can share it with anyone else who wasn't able to join today. Okay, so this is a basic rundown of your constitutional rights. The reason that we want to remember these is because ICE is going to try and violate them. And if we have proof that they violated your rights, then they have less power to detain and deport people. So if there's proof that they violated someone's rights while detaining them, they are likely to get out of detention more quickly and more easily. So you have the right to remain silent. You have to notify the officer that you are remaining silent, which is a somewhat frustrating part of US law. You have a right to talk to a lawyer. This is actually inaccurate in Oregon. We need to change this part. You are entitled to a lawyer in criminal court. That's a public defender. In many parts of the US, you are not entitled to a lawyer in immigration court because it's considered civil court. It's the kind of court that you go to if you have a traffic ticket. But in Oregon, we recently passed the Equity Corps funding through the state for Equity Corps, which is basically public defenders for immigration court. So you are entitled to a lawyer. We can get somebody a lawyer who cannot pay for one. You have the right to refuse to sign any document. Don't sign anything that you don't know exactly what it is and you haven't asked your lawyer yet. You have a right to not consent to a search of your home or car or person. and you have a right to record. So you can record anything as long as you're on public property. Don't go into somebody's home without their consent and record something. But if you're on a street corner, if you're on a sidewalk, if you're in a public park, you're allowed to record anything. And this is the same information, but in words that you can use. So I would stay on mute, but I would actually really recommend that you say these out loud with me, because it can be really intense in the moment to exercise your rights when the ICE agents, and we're going to see some videos in a moment, are trying to do everything they can for you to not exercise your rights. So it's going to feel weird, but I would really recommend that you say these along with me just to practice. So number 1, I have the right to remain silent. You cannot enter my home without a valid judicial warrant. I do not consent for you to search my home, car, or person. And you don't have to.
I do not consent for you to search my home, car, or person.
I want to talk to my lawyer. I will not sign anything without a lawyer.
I want to talk to my lawyer. I will not sign anything without a lawyer.
And as the video said before, you can say my lawyer even if you don't know who that is yet. You can still say that. I am being detained. No, sorry, that's not what it says. Am I being detained? Am I free to go?
Am I being detained? Am I free to go?
I don't want to show you any documents.
I don't want to show you any documents.
And this last one has the little 2 stars next to it. Oh, I just covered it up by moving my mouse. If you are the driver of a car and ICE pulls you over, you are required to show your driver's license, registration, and insurance to law enforcement. That is only true for the driver of the car. So if you, we can talk about that in a little bit. But not if you're on foot, correct, Mike? If you're on the sidewalk, you do not have to show anybody any documents, and you can say that to them. If ICE comes to somebody's home, this is a very common way that ICE will try and detain someone. This just happened at the end of September in the Gorge. ICE came to somebody's door, they knocked, they didn't say who they were. The 8-year-old son opened the door because they open the door when people knock, and they barged in. So if you have any question about who is knocking on your door, talk to them without opening the door. And you can open a window, you can shout through the door, whatever makes sense in that situation as well. The kids spoke English, but the parents did not, or didn't speak strong English. So they have no right to force your children to translate for you. They speak basic Spanish. That's a requirement of being an ICE officer. And if you don't speak English or Spanish, you still have a right to an interpreter. Tell them to come back with an interpreter if they're refusing to speak with you in the language that you speak. HSI has likely been surveilling. They know what language you speak, and unfortunately, they know a lot about what language you speak. They often will be tracking people to know when they're leaving for work in the morning, when they're coming home, and they have every ability to make the encounter accessible in language, but they often choose not to. They also will often present themselves as police. So if you have any question, if someone is at your door saying, police, it's police, open the door, and you think that it might be ICE, you can always actually call 911 and ask the dispatcher, is there police at my door? I know that lots of folks don't trust the police in our communities, and it's so that's totally up to you if you want to do that or not. But they they have an incentive to be a force that is trustworthy in the community. So they will likely respond if you're a community member asking, what's going on? Someone's knocking on my door. Is it you or is it somebody else? And in this moment, when we have militias posing as law enforcement and other things, it's actually outside of ICE, it's a reasonable thing to do when someone's knocking at your door at odd hours of the day. And then you have to make sure that they have a warrant. They're gonna say, open the door, they might say ICE, they might say police. Either way, they need a warrant to come into your home. And that warrant has to be signed by a judge. It has to have your name on it, spelled correctly. And it has to have the correct address, and it has to have the correct date. There's a date range that's gonna be on it. So it's very difficult, it's very unusual for them to have a judicial warrant. And they're not gonna wanna show you their warrant. They're gonna say, yeah, we have a warrant, open the door. And as this picture shows, have them slip it through the door, have them pass it through a window. Don't open the door to look at the warrant. Have them take a picture, like whatever. And this is also a situation where if there are community members or neighbors that can call, that this person inside the door can call for help, somebody else who feels safe engaging with ICE can say, I'm their friend, show me your warrant, like I'll take a look at it. So if you're outside, you could play that role. Trying to use my keyboard, it's not working. Oh, this is all the things I just said, but on the other slide. If ICE does have a warrant, and we're gonna look at warrants in just a minute, they do have the right to come into that home and with or without permission. And often what they will do, even if the warrant is only going to be for one person, they're going to try and detain everybody in that home that they can. So if you end up with a judicial warrant, which is very unlikely, make sure to have that person, if you're deciding to say, okay, I'm going to turn myself in because this is a valid warrant, have them go out a back door and come out the front, or have everybody else like go into another room and lock the door, or do something to protect everybody else, because I don't know the exact statistic, but most arrests are what they call collateral arrests. So they'll be looking for one particular person, or maybe they'll just be looking for anyone they can take. But if they are going to look for one particular person, they're going to try and sweep up more people while they're there. Okay, this is really intense stuff. So if you need to move your body, take a deep breath, do what you need to do. This is what a U.S. District Court official judicial warrant looks like. It has the judge's signature down here. It has the correct name, correct address, and it has the date. I know this one's a little bit blurry, but I think that says the name. It says search warrant on it. Most important thing to look for, if there's no judicial signature, this is not a judicial warrant. It doesn't matter what else is on there. It's not valid under a court of law. This is what they're probably going to send you or show you. This is most likely what ICE was calling their warrant on August 12th. They definitely did not have a judicial warrant. They maybe didn't even have one of these. It says ICE at the top, it says warrant, but it's really just a piece of paper that the ICE officers printed out. Doesn't even have the name on it sometimes. Sometimes there's a signature, but this says INS official. This is actually, INS is what ICE used to be called before 2003. It says field office director. It doesn't say judge, is the long and the short of it. And that is really key. If you you're gonna get these slides after this, if you wanna print them out, put them on your front door, put them in your wallet, whatever it takes to help like have a visual aid and a reference. That can be helpful. But okay, so those are the rights. Those are the words that you can say and practice as you're going to sleep at night. Those are what judicial warrants look like. And now we're going to talk about how to use that information. What are you going to do? So in Washington, they have a hotline number that anyone can call if they're experiencing ICE activity or are concerned about ICE activity. And we're working to set up a similar system here in Central Oregon. And there's some hotline infrastructure in other parts of the state. If you or you have friends in other parts of the state, I know some folks registered for this that weren't in Central Oregon, so we can get you connected to the resources that are out there. In the meantime of not having a handy dandy hotline number, it's really helpful to have a text loop or to save someone's number in your phone who you know is connected to the community. So what we're planning to do after this training is to set up some small text loops based on like community by community. And if you want to be a part of that after this training, you will definitely be invited to participate. And in the meantime, like you're always welcome to reach out to Rural Organizing Project, Mecca Bend, Central Oregon Peacekeepers. We've done this before and we're happy to help. So let us know if you hear of any ICE activity and we will be letting you know as soon as there's a more solidified like single number way to get the word out. Where did my videos go? I thought we were gonna watch videos. Here they are. Let's watch videos and then we'll talk about the verifiers piece. So this is a real life example of somebody getting stopped by ICE while driving.
Department of Homeland Security order.
It's a warrant.
Okay. No, it's not a warrant. It's not a warrant under the Constitution of the United States.
Warrant of arrest of alien.
Yeah, warrant of arrest of alien not signed by a judge. It's not a judicial warrant. I have no obligation to oblige by that warrant.
This is a lawful warrant
Signed by a judge?
Of the Immigration and Nationality Act, and an official designated with that authority.
Are you hearing this, Mark?
Yeah, I'm telling my mom on my way.
Our attorney's on his way.
Okay. What's that gonna?
That's not a warrant.
That is a warrant.
No, it's not. It's a Department of Homeland Security order.
It's a warrant.
Okay. No, it's not a warrant. It's not a warrant under the Constitution of the United States.
It's a warrant under the Immigration and Nationality Act of the United States.
Okay, that's fine, but it's not under the Constitution. You have no jurisdiction over me as a citizen. I'm the driver of this vehicle.
Okay, are you familiar with Title 8, Section 1324 of U.S. Code?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. In what regard?
I'm studying to be a Department of Justice accredited representative, so I've been through trainings.
Okay.
And I have copies of actually in this box right here, I have a copy of a real warrant and a copy of that, just so people know not to listen to that.
Okay, so you're aware of the statutes governing transporting and harboring illegal aliens in the United States?
I am.
Okay.
Notice their uniforms that just say police on the front. Yeah, no, they definitely act like, pretend that they're police. I think, I don't know if you saw it in that video, but their front just says police on it and they don't identify where they are. If you notice the next time that you see a police officer or a sheriff in whatever community you're calling in from, and check out what their uniform looks like. Oftentimes they'll have like an emblem on their shoulder or on their like breast pocket or whatever that says the town or the county that they represent. So check out what that looks like so that if you see something that looks different than that, you might be tipped off. That's not my full screen version. I have never seen a case where an ICE officer is in a local sheriff uniform. Mostly they just wear plain clothes right now, but that could change. And there are places where local law enforcement are deputized to be ICE agents. So they sign it's called a 287G agreement. You don't need to remember that number. And the police department or the sheriff's office has committed to asking of people's immigration status and detaining them if they don't have legal status. I've never heard of ICE posing as someone else in the sense of wearing their own uniform. They will like be vague about who they are, but I've never heard them lie. Not saying it hasn't happened. I've just never heard about it in our state. So first thing you want to do before, this is the first step of a rapid response team, is to verify that ICE is actually there. There are often rumors, particularly when ICE and the federal administration is trying to create a climate of fear for immigrant communities. There's lots of times when that fear is real and people see what they think is ICE and start telling their neighbors, hey, watch out, don't go to Fred Meyer, hey, don't go here, we saw this Jeep, people in uniform that weren't identified. Don't spread rumors until it's confirmed. So the first step of a rapid response team is to verify that ICE is actually in the community. And to stop rumors as they're spreading. Oftentimes we'll see on social media, like, hey, ICE, and there'd be no picture, so ask for a picture. And then if there is a picture, like do a quick Google search with that picture. Like you can search images on Google. It might be from years ago, or it might be from like Florida or from somewhere else, and people are nervous, rightfully so. And so they're trying to let people know and trying to do the right thing, but actually spreading more fear than is necessary in the community. So be really careful about rumors. If you hear about something, let us know, like let me know, let Janet know, let peacekeepers know, and we will also be looping you into the work of checking those rumors. When ICE was here on August 12th in Bend, there was rumors that they were in 3 other parts of Bend. There were rumors that they were in Redmond, Madras, Prineville, probably even more than that. Those are the ones that I heard. And I know people on this call were driving around trying to check those rumors and say, okay, no, we don't actually have anything. We don't need to worry about them in other places. That was just a rumor. And that's really helpful for rapid response, because you don't want to have 100 people show up because there's a white van in the Walmart parking lot. Or tell people not to go get their groceries if it's just a white van and not ICE. But if you get there, you're checking the rumor and it actually is ICE, and you literally just go up and ask them, are you ICE, if you feel comfortable doing that. Then we want to we want to let everybody know that's trained to be a legal observer. We want to get our community out if the people being detained want there to be lots of people out and blocking the buses or doing whatever we can. So we'll set up this text loop for like community by community. In Washington, this is kind of how it works. They have the hotline volunteer that will send out the message. Someone will verify it. They'll report back. And then if it is ICE activity, as many people as can will go to that location. And things to look out for are enforcement agency vehicles or officers. You can look for federal plates. Sometimes they have Oregon plates. Sometimes federal plates are the Forest Service or any number of other federal agencies that work in our communities. So make sure to see who the officers are, ask for their badge, ask for their number. If it doesn't, their like police ID number, not their phone number. If they're not visible, maybe they left already, so ask some people that are around there. But it's always good to double check and check, because we don't want to miss it when ICE is here, but we also don't want to tell our community that they're here when they aren't. So we want to be really sure before putting the word out. Okay, now we're going to watch one more video. This is a workplace/home detention. You'll see that there's some disagreement between the ICE officers and the people working there, what kind of designation it is. And this happened in Portland.
Make a phone call. I need to see your ID. No, I need to see your ID. Why not? Because I'm not letting you. I need to see your identification. Why? Yeah. Because I have reason to believe you're not in the country legally. All right? I need to see your identification.
Hey, well, I mean, has he been charged or something?
Yes, he has.
What's the charge?
I can't talk to you about that. I can talk to him about that, okay?
I understand, but I mean, there's no charge, there's no really reason for you guys to...
Person without admission in the United States of America, that's the charge.
Okay, do you guys have a warrant to come in his home?
We don't need a warrant to come in this home. No one lives here.
You do need it. We talk to the homeowner, we work with the homeowner.
Listen, I know that no one lives here. This is considered a place of business. You guys are here to work.
They live downstairs. Everything is downstairs. Their furniture is everything downstairs. It's a big home. We're finishing up so they can come back up. Her vehicle is right outside. I think you guys need to speak with her before you guys even come in here.
That's fine.
I mean, honestly, I don't think you guys should even be in here. You're basically trespassing at this moment, right now.
Okay, we asked to speak with him, and you showed us in. First of all,
I opened the door. I never told you to come in.
Okay, listen, I don't want to get into it with you.
That's
I just
fine.
need to come and talk to him.
I'm just letting you know that right now you guys are trespassing at this very moment. This is somebody's home. We're working here, yes.
Right.
But it is vacated. It's here. The people are living here.
Where?
Her vehicle is right outside. The Tahoe?
That's theirs.
Yes. So you guys are currently trespassing at this moment. So if you guys don't have a warrant, you're kind of breaking the law. Well, you are breaking the law, basically, at this point. So I would suggest to wait outside so Cindy gets here.
Where's the homeowner? Are they here now?
She's on her way.
I just heard a voicemail, so I don't think they're on
I
the way.
just texted the manager. So
She's right there. Okay.
So
Thanks, Cindy.
you guys mind waiting outside?
We're just gonna stand within view of our.
Okay. You guys can stand outside.
Right. We're not gonna leave. All right. We're
That's fine. That's fine.
And we'll talk to Cindy if I need to.
Okay.
Right. I'm happy to talk.
Did you stop by? You think you can stop by? Okay. All right. She's coming.
Okay. Where's she at?
She's probably here.
She's probably here.
She's on her way. She's on her way.
So she doesn't live here.
Like I said, at this moment you guys are trespassing on private property.
Hang on one second.
Okay. I never said that. I've been recording since you guys got here.
No, nobody there.
So, honestly, at this point, like I said, you guys are trespassing. I've been recording this whole time.
That's fine.
Okay.
You're allowed to record.
Absolutely. And your name again?
Is your recording going to show that you did let us come in here?
Like I said, I never said come in. I opened the door. You said, is he here? I came to check. You guys came in. Nobody told you to come in. So at this point, it's on you guys.
Okay. All right, hang on.
Yeah? We're going to close the door because it's getting cold.
Jason has dedicated his career to help.
So what did y'all see between those two videos? What did the people do well, and what could they have maybe done better? You can drop it in the chat or come off mute and shout them out. Cool under pressure. Plain clothes, yep. Recorded from the beginning, but gave too much info. Kathy, do you wanna share a little bit more about what info was unnecessary or too much? Stayed calm. Yeah, it's pretty intense when they're like basically yelling at you that you're doing the wrong thing. Should not have opened the door. Yep. Yeah, so they said where they lived, they said what they were driving. That's not information that the ICE officer needs to know, but it can be hard when you're like standing there and it's awkwardly silent and they're asking you questions. So that's why it's helpful to repeat those, like, we have the right to remain silent, you are not allowed to be here, like the person in the first video who's just like given nothing, like, that's okay, but I'm waiting for my lawyer. Okay, it's not a warrant, just repeat the same thing. It doesn't have to, you don't have to give them other answers. They're gonna try and get more information out of you.
It's important to note also one of the comments here saying if it should have said even more directly, you do not have the permission to be in this home, please leave. Once they do enter your home, they cannot leave, or they will not leave. So that is something important, that the best way to prevent that is to not allow them to enter the home from the beginning. And again, that is restating those rights and asking to see the warrant. And if they do not present the judicial warrant in front of you, they do not have a right to enter your home.
Yeah, so Shannon, you can say, like this person was saying, please leave, but they are already in the home and they want to stay there, so they're 90% not going to listen to you. They have access, but taking a video is going to help in this person's legal case in the event that they are detained in the end. So having proof of this person, like saying on video, you did not have permission to come in here, is much better than having that just like having that not recorded and just be saying that to the ICE agent. And then in court, it's like, well, I said that to the ICE agent that they weren't allowed to be here. And the ICE agent's going to say, yeah, they did, and change the story and say whatever they want to keep this person in detention. Yeah, Mike, this is great. We should never record the face of the person being investigated or targeted. That is a super good point. So, nope, that's not what I meant to do. So let's talk about rapid response teams. If you are in the text loop, you hear that ICE is present, somebody goes to verify it, and it is ICE. That person starts filming. They're the first person on scene, and they text everyone else in their loop, hey, come down to XYZ address. We have ICE on scene. Second person is going to be a note taker, like in the cartoon video, taking notes of what's happening, because even if you do have a video, sometimes it's super shaky or the lighting's not great, or you might notice things being there in person that you can't see on video, and it's a really intense moment, so you want to be taking notes in the moment. Third person that shows up, if you get 3 people there, they can be another camera person. Maybe the first person went up close and asked to see their badge or see their ID, and the next person is further back taking in the whole scene, or the other way around. Next person that shows up can be community liaison, so letting folks who are in the area or other family members say like, hey, this is what's going on, can you help us, or can we help you make sure to stay safe and get home, or get a ride home, or whatever needs to happen. Sixth person would be ICE liaison. So this is someone that feels comfortable interacting with the ICE agents. They're gonna say, hey, can you show me your warrant? We are legal observers, use whatever official language you want. We're trained and ready to be here. We know our rights. We feel confident in this situation. We're gonna protect our rights, and we wanna know what's going on in our community. What's your badge number? What's your name? Get any information you can about them, about their car, about their license plate. And then the seventh person, it'd be great to get a lawyer there on scene. Not always possible. Sometimes ICE comes, picks someone up, and leaves town immediately. Other times, like in August, we got, 300 people to show up, including lawyers, including media, including local elected officials. That kind of thing is awesome when it's possible, and when the family or the people being affected want that to happen. So just be, particularly when it's like one or two people, be really cognizant that ICE is a problem for our entire community, but in the moment that they're detaining and arresting somebody, we want to make sure to be, as that initial goal was saying, taking the direction from the people that are actively being detained, or the families that are actively being separated. So not everybody actually wants video footage of what's going on. That's a great reason not to be Facebook Living, but to be recording it directly onto your phone. And not everybody wants the whole community to be there for whatever reason. So especially if it's someone's like home, or someone's like personal vehicle or whatever, we want to make sure that we're getting consent before kind of blasting it out on social media or anyway. My battery is dwindling. Thank you. I will plug it in so that I don't forget. That would be unfortunate if just training ended early. Okay, so I just mentioned this a little bit, but what to document if you do see ICE. There's a lot of words, but when we talked in the beginning about the difference between DHS, ICE, HSI, all this alphabet soup, in the end, they're trying to detain someone, but in the legal case, it is important to know who was there and what rights they have. And Border Patrol has different jurisdiction than ICE. HSI has different jurisdiction than ERO. You don't necessarily have to remember that in the moment, but it is important to document who's there, what does their badge look like, what kind of authority are they here under, so that the lawyer can use that in the legal case. How many? So in that video, in the last video we watched, it looked like there were maybe 2 officers, and then like another person came in the door, and then a 4th person came in the door. So it's good to document how many officers, how many vehicles did they come in, what's their license plate, as I said, are they inside or outside, and have people been detained? So sometimes it's not always obvious if people have been detained, so you want to make sure to look, videotape or look inside of vehicles to see if anybody's inside, because if they're there and no one's been detained, we have more power to keep people safe than if people are already been detained. We still have the ability to fight their case, but you need to know what the situation is. And let me just see if there's anything I haven't said yet. Don't use Facebook Live. Make sure to focus, this was in the chat box, make sure to focus on the ICE officers, not the people that are being detained. We're looking for evidence of ICE officers violating people's rights. So we don't actually want to document what the individuals are doing, because it's their decision how they act in that situation. But there have been cases where people have chosen to run away or to give out more information than they necessarily needed to. And we don't really want that on camera, because then that might actually harm their case. And then also record like where you are. So if there's like a home address or a street sign or something like that, record where you are, say the date and time like out loud into the camera, so that, because videos that are unedited are the strongest like piece of evidence in a court of law. So it's great to have it all in one cut. Don't turn your camera off. If your battery's dying, try and get a friend to like start their camera or get a battery power bank or something so that you can be recording the entire time. And I think this goes unsaid, but like these are intense moments. Do your best. Anything is better than nothing. So it can be like, oh God, there's so much to remember. And also like, get your phone out, like do something, like share some know your rights information, do what you can. It's not always going to be perfect. And then just like in the video, the first video we watched, when ICE leaves the scene, share your information with us. I put ROP's email down here. Share it with any of us that you feel most comfortable with. We actually have a Google Drive folder of footage from August 12th that is now accessible to the lawyers to use in Marco and Josue's cases. So if you have any footage from that or anything that you wrote down or pictures, certainly send them our way. But that's also the case for any legal case. If someone's detained, we want as much information as possible. And even if they aren't detained, we still want every bit of information we can on ICE, because their tactics are always changing and their weapons are always changing, both like physical and ways that they interact in society. So we always want to know what happened, even if it's not confirmed. Like, we're not going to just post it on social media that ICE was maybe at this place, but we want as much information as we can get, because that way we can respond as best as possible. Okay, I think this is the last slide before breakout rooms. We'll just say that this is scary stuff, and you are your own human. You get to decide how much risk and you're going to be taking on in any situation. Like I said, we've seen in Bend that people are, ICE will be violent with anyone in the way of their objectives. So there are some risks that we're taking on by doing this work. And there's also, as we said in the beginning, there's lots of ways to participate in this movement for immigrant justice, movement for social justice. So this is not like the one end all be all thing that everyone needs to participate in if it's not like right for your life right now. But so you can make an informed decision, you have the right to record in any public space. You have the right to privacy. So if your phone has a password on it, ideally a number password or a letter password, they cannot unreasonably search your device. They have taken people's phones, they have taken them, deleted the footage, and given them back. They have like put people's finger up to their phone for like, what's it called? Like fingerprint unlocking or face unlocking. So it's best not to use that sort of technology and have a code. In some court, they even said it has to be 6 digits long for that to be a private space, for your phone to be a private space. So lock your devices. That's a good thing to do for local law enforcement and for ICE. And as we said, right to remain silent. You have a right to speak to a lawyer. And that being said, you might be retaliated against. You, depending on your immigration status, depending on your race and gender presentation and criminal justice history, there are different levels of risk in interacting with ICE. And please don't go into people's homes or cars without permission. This was actually something that when ICE was here in Bend on the 12th, we almost got, were almost forced to leave the location because it was private property. And luckily, there were enough people there that somebody somehow knew the hotel owner, and we got permission to stay. But it was called into question whether that was a public space that we were allowed to be in. And then, so it just gets more complicated, basically, is what I'm trying to say, if you're not in public property. So if it's at all possible, stay on public property or get permission to go private places. I'm gonna hand it back over to Janet.
Thanks, Emma. So at this time, we're going to do a little breakout session. We're going to automatically put folks into a couple of different rooms. There's only a few of us facilitating, so we'll have big groups. And what we want is to ask folks to participate in any way that they feel they can. So you can use the chat box, or you can unmute yourself once we're in the breakout room. And what we want to identify before we go in there is that this is a moment of self-reflection. This is not a moment of criticism for those that were on the ground on August 12th. But give us your thoughts on what you think went well, what could have gone better, and again, ask those questions as a moment of self-reflection, what you think you did well, what you think you could have done a little better, or what are things that you are committed to doing in the future. So there is going to be a Spanish breakout room, and hopefully the folks that identified their language on screen will be sent to the Spanish room, and the rest of us will be put into some of the English breakout rooms. So hang tight for a few minutes.
Send us, definitely like stay in touch, send us questions. Thank you everybody for being with us this morning. I was saying this to our my little breakout, but really appreciate everyone taking their Saturday morning to be with us and to be thinking about how we can be better prepared as a region. We'll be sending out the recording. We'll be sending out a sign-up form to see kind of what different roles you might be interested in taking on, whether that's like you would be interested in being part of like taking calls for the hotline once we get that infrastructure set up, or you want to be on that text loop to check rumors, or any of those things. There's lots of other ways you can participate too. And we'll be sending those links to the videos and some other resources if you really want to dig in, or if you love videos and you want to watch more of those. Get in touch with us. These are our emails. And please do, we're putting this training on free of cost because we want as many people to access it as possible. And it's not free for us to do all of this work. So please, if you are able to, donate to support it. We listed rop.org/donate and mechabend.org, and you can find how to donate to Peacekeepers on their Facebook page. But we really appreciate all of your participation in all the different ways that you're participating. So just, yeah, thanks again for being here, and get in touch with us, and we'll be in touch with you as well.